What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today, we'll be starting my AFC Draft Grades. I am home now. You can see I'm in my room, back from college, so this is where I'm going to be doing the rest of my videos for the summer. So, don't mind the change of scenery, but today we are going to be starting our AFC Draft Grades, starting with the AFC East. So you will hear me talk about the Bills, the Dolphins, Patriots, and the Jets in that order. So let's get right into this with the Buffalo Bills. Starting with their first-round pick of Kyer Elam, the corner from Florida. This was a good pick for them. I think he's going to, come in there and be a nice, cornerback 2 for them right away. I don't think he's quite, perfect scheme fit for them because Buffalo's definitely more of a zone team. But he's going to be a nice complement outside of Tre'Davious White as they lost Levi Wallace. And that was really a position where they didn't have a lot of depth last season outside of Teron Johnson, who was their slot corner. And just didn't really have a lot of depth, so he's going to come in there and be a good player. He's got a lot of experience, was a 3-year starter at Florida. Was really hyped up as a freshman and a sophomore, but he had kind of a down season last year. Still managed to be a first-round pick, has a good technique, has good hips. I think he's just kind of solid around the board. I think his zone instincts need to improve, especially if he's going to be playing in a zone-heavy scheme like Buffalo. But he's a really good man-to-man corner, really tight in the hip pocket, good ball skills. So I think that he's going to be a good player here, for the Buffalo Bills. And then we moved to James Cook, the running back from Georgia, who was my number 3 running back because I felt like he could be David Johnson. This is a little bit of a weird spot for him, in my opinion, because I think Buffalo kind of has like Singletary, who's, kind of like Dion Lewis is kind of how I, picture him as. And then you have like Zach Moss, who's kind of like a poor man's A.J. Dillon. So I felt like if the Bills were going to go running back, they needed a bell cow like a Breece Hall, like a Dameon Pierce or an Isaiah Spiller or somebody like that. And, I think that James Cook's certainly an upgrade in terms of receiving value at the running back position, but as a true runner, I don't necessarily know if he is. Because I think he's just got a lot of work to do in that department. I told you I think he could be David Johnson, but, that's, if, he puts in the work and, I think he can. But, this pick was very strange to me because I felt like Buffalo didn't need this type of running back because I think Singletary is a good receiving back and they have Duke Johnson there already. So it was just kind of weird to me to see like James Cook go off the board to Buffalo because I felt like they could have gone in a different direction here, or they could have just chosen a different running back like Dameon Pierce, Isaiah Spiller, et cetera, et cetera. But I think he does bring more like home run value as a running back, and he's really good receiving back out of the backfield. It's just, can he develop and turn into that David Johnson type, or is he going to stay as that James White type? We don't know. Then we have Terrell Bernard here from Baylor. I did not like this pick. I have it graded as a D. I felt like Bernard was definitely more of he looked like a safety playing linebacker, honestly. He's not very big. He's like, his frame like is very skinny and not like built at all. I think he's going to get absolutely bodied in the run game. He's got good instincts and is a decent cover player, but I just think he'd be like, better as like kind of a safety or maybe like a, dime linebacker. I just don't really see him having any other sort of role besides that. I thought it was way too early for him. There was like Leo Chenal was still on the board. There was a bunch of other guys that were still on the board that would have been better options at this point. But then you hit a home run here and draft Khalil Shakir out of Boise State in the 5th round, who I had, late second, early third. So that's really great value for him. I think he's immediately going to replace that Cole Beasley type role where he's going to get, he's going to play a lot in the slot. I don't know if he's going to start immediately because they just signed Jamison Crowder, but Crowder has had injury issues in the past, so I think Shakir will come in there and play a lot just due to the fact that, Crowder can't stay healthy. He's going to have schemed up touches for him, and be a really big part of that Bills offense. I think he could return for you as well. So that's added value. I think he's not quite as fast, route running and such like that. It's more like he gets the ball and then he turns into excuse me, a Percy Harvin or somebody with a ball in his hands. I mean, he really turns on the jets when he's got the ball in his hands. So another added bonus there for Josh Allen, getting another weapon that he can distribute the ball to. And then they take the GOAT, Matt Ariaza, the punter from San Diego State, who I'm really surprised he was the third or fourth punter off the board. And everybody talks about this guy being a legit, punter prospect of the century or whatever. So really interesting to see him go that far down the list. But the only reason I'm giving it a C+ is because it is Matt Ariaza. And, normally I don't think punters should be taken to the 7th round. But hey, I mean, it's not bad. Not a bad pick in any way. So, and then Benford from Villanova, I don't know much about. Dart throw to corner, which Buffalo did struggle with depth. So I don't have a problem with that pick. And then Luke Tenuta, not a bad tackle prospect there. I think he's, big, athletic, burly type dude. Kind of what Buffalo's been investing at tackle recently with Spencer Brown and, re-signing Darrell Williams and now picking up Luke Tenuta here. And then you get Balen Spector, who's another, linebacker depth piece who I think can be, more of an all-around player than Terrell Bernard. I mean, I think that, he definitely needs a lot of work. I think he's good in coverage, not outstanding, but I think he's good. I don't think he's great in man coverage at all. And then I think he's just kind of one of those high-effort players in the run game, which I think will benefit him at the next level. At the very least, I think he can be a good special teamer for them if he makes the roster. But, maybe you got something there in the linebacker late in the 7th round there who's got a lot of experience playing at Clemson. My final grade for the Bills is a C+. I think they hit early with those 2 picks. And then kind of the Bernard and the day 3 selections outside of Khalil Shakir I wasn't big fans of. So gave the Bills a C+ here. Wasn't a terrible draft, but wasn't, fantastic either. So, but still a decent draft for them. And then we have the Miami Dolphins here who just have 4 players drafted. So we'll be going through this pretty quickly. So at the end of the 3rd round, their first pick, they took Channing Tindall from Georgia, which I thought was a very good pick. I had Tindall kind of around this area. These Georgia linebackers are really tough to judge because some of them, or most of them, didn't play a lot. And Tindall played the least out of Quay Walker and Kobe Dean and the other guy that was there whose name is escaping me. But Tindall was probably the most productive of the 3 and played the least amount. He's a really, really good blitzer. Was very productive coming from, a traditional linebacker position and sometimes off the edge. I think that he's a very good run defender. I think immediately he's going to make a difference on early downs. Going in there, filling run gap holes, making plays in the run game, especially with a good Miami front. In coverage, I think is his kind of, weakest point. I think that he certainly isn't bad by any means. I think he's okay. And they had a guy in the Kobe Dean that was the best at that, so he didn't really have to do that a lot. But I think Channing Tindall has a decent upside in coverage. I mean, I don't think he's going to be anything special as a man cover guy, but in zone coverage, I think he can be, good. So I think he's going to have, to do some work in that department, but I think that Tyndall gives Miami kind of a guy next to Jerome Baker to really you know, be kind of that next guy, that they pay long term and stuff like that. Because I think Jerome Baker's more of that cover player, less of a run defender, and Tyndall's kind of the opposite. So now that they have a guy to pair with Jerome Baker there going forward. Eric Ezukanma, I don't hate. In fact, I actually really like Ezukanma, but this was way too early for him. I had him as more of like a late fifth, early to mid sixth. So this is really early for him, and it just doesn't really make any sense for me to get a big-bodied guy in here. Like, I know you got rid of Devontae Parker, but you also have Preston Williams there, who's a much better player. I think Ezukanma is kind of that perimeter possession receiver who's running hitches, who's running curls, who's running comeback routes, and the occasional go or dig route. I don't think he's ever going to be like, a Kenny Galladay or any of those big-bodied, physical dudes like that. I just don't think that's Ezukanma's game. I don't think he's got the speed for that. I do think he has the hands for it, but he doesn't have the speed or the route running as of right now to do that. So I think he's going to be that possession guy. I don't really even know if he's going to play that much or even make the team. So, we'll see kind of how that pick turns out for him. And then we have Cameron Good, the defensive back from California. I think that, he can be certainly at least a depth player for them and a good special teamer. Has versatility at safety and corner, so we'll kind of see where they decide to play him. Tested really well at his pro day. So, that's a decent dart throw there. If you're going to bet on, corners late, I think speed is always a good way to go, and he tested really, really well. So there you have that. And then Skylar Thompson out of Kansas State. I thought he was a borderline draftable player. I think he's kind of similar to Sam Ehlinger type player. I mean, I don't think he's got a very strong arm, but he's super athletic. I think he could come in there for maybe some goal line packages and be like a quarterback power type thing or short yardage. So it gives him a different set of skill set there in the quarterback room. It'll be interesting to see if he makes the team or whatever, because they got Tua and Teddy there. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But overall, I have a C+, short draft class here for Miami, 4 players. So not really much to go off of, but I think that the Tyndall pick was nice. I know the grade for Ezukanma is a C-, but I do like him as a player. I just think it was early. And then Skylar Thompson, Cameron Good, getting some athletes into those corner and quarterback rooms. So we'll kind of see how those guys play out. And now for my favorite team, the New England Patriots. And I am here to tell you why this draft wasn't as bad as people say it is. It wasn't a D+. It wasn't a C-. I mean, I think that people are going a little bit overboard on the hate on this draft class. I really do. I don't think it was as bad as people say it is. And the person to tell you more than anybody else is me, because I know this team better than most of the people out there. So let's get into this. The Cole Strange pick. Yeah, it was a reach. I mean, I can definitely agree to everyone out there who's like, oh, it was a reach. Yes, it was a reach. I think Strange was still a top 50 to 60 player in this class because of the fact that he is super, super athletic. I mean, his ability to gain ground on his second step is better than any guard in this class in terms of wide zone type concepts. I think he's super physical, and a lot of people are looking at the Senior Bowl tape, some of the Senior Bowl tapes where he got beat badly. And he was playing out of position there at center. So I kind of take that into account. And also, for everybody who's throwing around those 3 clips on the Senior Bowl where he gets, roasted, he had a better one-on-one win percentage than the guy who I had number 4 on my board in Zion Johnson. So that's also something to consider, along with the fact that he was playing out of position. So, yes, I still agree with everybody that this was a reach, but it was also a position of need, and they traded back with Kansas City. So, I don't really hate the pick, honestly. I mean, I think at the time I was mad because of the fact that the guys they passed on, like a Dax Hill, like a George Karlaftis, was kind of like mind boggling that they passed on him. But I think that in terms of this scenario, it's not like the worst thing in the world to have, because they traded away Shaq Mason and Ted Karras left in free agency for Cincinnati. So they need a starting guard, and I didn't really want Yasir Durant or somebody like that starting. So they went and they drafted Cole Strange, and I think the perfect example of this, saying that it wasn't as big of a reach as you thought, was Kyle Shanahan, who in an interview, I don't know who it was with, but it was a press conference, and he was with John Lynch, and he was basically saying, there's, obviously people are going to have people graded differently, and he said basically based off the tape that he was a first round player, and that you don't know when players are going to go until they're drafted. And it's kind of like, well, looking at the tape, he's a first round player, but everyone says he's going in the second or third round, so who's going to pull the trigger? And it was New England. And I think they would have probably taken him at 21 as well, but they traded back and gathered some picks from Kansas City. So I don't think it was as bad as a pick as everyone says it is. I still have it as a C+, but I mean, I truly, honestly don't think it was as bad of a pick as it was. And then you go to Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor. I have seen people all over the map with this pick. I've seen it as an F. I've seen it as a D. I've seen it as like a C-. I'm here to tell you that Tyquan Thornton wasn't making it out of the second round. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, he's just the next John Ross because he ran 4.28. But no, because this dude can actually get off press coverage. He has a really good release package. I think he is, better in contested catch situations. I think it was like 60% of the opportunities he had to catch in traffic, he did. And this guy's like 5'8", 180. So that's really good for a guy his size. I think he's a good route runner. I think that's probably his most underrated feature, is people just think he's a straight up deep threat. It's like, no, this dude can work intermediate, short yardage part of the field. You saw it at Baylor. I think he got better every season at Baylor. He was super productive last season. I think he had like around 50 catches for 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I don't think Tyquan Thornton is this next John Ross, Darius Hayward-Bay type player. I think he's truly a guy that can work all three levels of the field. He can catch the ball in traffic. I think sometimes he struggles to get off press coverage just because of his size, but he does have a good release package. So I think that he can get off the press, which John Ross couldn't. And that's the big reason why he struggled, in the NFL today. I truly think Tyquan Thornton was a good pick. I don't think he was making it out of the second round. And yeah, you can say they took him over Sky Moore and George Pickens and everything else, but George Pickens reminded Belichick of Randy Moss, I'm sure, with all the off-the-field issues, and he didn't want to go through that again. And then, with Sky Moore, I truly think that they already have Sky Moore on their team, and, Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. I think Kendrick Bourne is literally like a carbon copy of Sky Moore, so I don't think they needed another one. And they didn't have a guy that truly had game-changing speed. And Sky Moore ran really well at the combine, but he wasn't 4.28 like Tyquan Thornton. So I don't think this is as bad of a pick as it really was. I think it's a B+. And then you have Marcus Jones, slot corner out of Houston. And this dude has the best technique out of anybody in the draft, and that includes Derek Stingley Jr. and Mod Sauce Gardner. If this dude was 6 foot and, 200, he would have been the first corner off the board. But he's 5'8". So, he's strictly a slot player at the next level, but he's also the best kick returner in this class, the best punt returner in this class, and probably can play some offense. This dude is electric with the ball in his hands, and he's great technique, and I think this reminded him a lot of Jonathan Jones, who is, shorter guy, but super fast, super athletic, was undrafted out of Auburn, came in, played special teams, as a rookie, and then worked his way into that starting slot corner job. So I think Marcus Jones is their day one dime, with, being their day one kick and punt returner, because they didn't have one on the roster because they let Olszewski go. So I think this is a really good pick. Then the one that I just didn't really understand, at least why they took this player this early, was Jack Jones. So Jack Jones, coming out of high school, was a 5-star recruit, went to USC, and then he got in trouble. I believe he was deactivated because of grades, and then he was arrested because he was trying to steal something out of a store. So after that, he went to Arizona State, where he played a lot. Played every single year. He played outside and inside, and I think at the next level for the Patriots, he's going to play outside corner. This is similar to J.C. Jackson, who was listed at 6'1", but was actually under 5'10", I believe. So I think Jack Jones is kind of your J.C. Jackson, like, long-term replacement. I think he's similar size profile to both Malcolm Butler and J.C. Jackson, who've had really good success in the scheme. I like his technique. I just think he needs, like, a lot of work. Once, like, his press technique is great, but after they get by him, I think he needs, like, a lot more help. And he's got nothing in zone coverage right now. So I think that, he's going to need a lot of work, and Belichick's specialty has kind of been DBs. So I think that Jack Jones can certainly be a quality starter for them at the next level. But I did think it was definitely early. I thought he was more of like a, 6th-round guy. So definitely early. And then it's like, then the next pick's Pierre Strong Jr., running back from South Dakota State, and everyone's like, why are they taking a running back? Like, they have Damian Harris, they have Ramondre Stevenson, they have James White. So let me tell you why they're taking a running back. Because James White's on the last year of his deal, right? And he's coming off a hip injury that he still hasn't fully recovered from. I think he's supposed to be ready for training camp, but it's kind of a TBD. They don't have anybody with the speed of Pierre Strong Jr. on their team as a running back. Pierre Strong Jr. instantly becomes their home run threat. I don't know how much he's going to play in year one, but I think he becomes more of a home run threat. He's better for that wide zone, type offense, which I think New England's going to try and switch to, or at least incorporate more into, which I think is part of the reason they took Cole Strange, is because they wanted to do that. And then they took Pierre Strong Jr., who fits more of that scheme. And also because Belichick rarely ever gives running backs second contracts. I think the only players he's done it with is Blunt, who was on multiple one-year deals, and James White, who's been their scat back. Like, he hasn't even really been, like, their main guy. Their main running backs, they've let everybody go. Stephen Ridley, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, the guy that I'm thinking of, Antoine Smith, Corey Dillon. That was kind of earlier in their dynasty, but he doesn't pay running backs. And I think Damian Harris is in their price range, but I don't know if they're going to keep him, to be honest. I think that, they have a guy who they took later in the draft, Kevin Harris, running back South Carolina, which I did grade this as a C- because I thought it was a little bit overboard, but I understand the pick because he's like a poor man's Damian Harris. And if it weren't for his back injury this year, he probably would have been one of the first 3 running backs off the board because his tape was that good in 2020. And I think this is kind of insurance policy for if they don't pay Damian Harris. And I think Kevin Harris is a good player, but, it's kind of, over, I guess, overdrafting for Patriots at running back. So we'll kind of see. I don't think Kevin Harris will play at all. I think he'll probably be put on IR from the start of the season and stay there the entire year, kind of similar to what they did with like Braxton Berrios, Damian Harris. So we'll see how that plays. I think Pierre Strong's mostly a healthy scratch till the end of the year, so we'll kind of see how much impact those guys have. And then everybody is shredding the Bailey Zapp pick. And I get it because they're like, oh, you took Mac Jones last year. Why are you taking Bailey Zapp? The Patriots need a backup quarterback long term, and I think Zapp's the perfect guy for it. Brian Hoyer has been on and off with the team. He knows the team very well. He's very, smart guy. Commander of the offense type thing, field general, going to read a defense really well. So I think they're always looking for that intelligent guy who can read a defense, who can manage the offense very well and efficiently. And Stidham's not the guy. They thought Stidham was the guy, and he's not. So Zapp is the perfect guy for their system, for what they look for. He's a smart dude. He's going to, if Mac Jones ever gets hurt, he's going to come in. He's going to run the offense efficiently. He's got a better arm than Mac Jones, in my opinion. He's just not as methodical in his reads, and he's not as athletic as Mac Jones is. So you have that, but I do think this was a at least average pick. I think, you could have went somewhere else, but I also understand it from the standpoint of Hoyer's on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal. I can't remember what he signed to. I think it was a 2-year deal. Stidham is probably gone because he's not your guy. He's not your future backup. And they needed a guy that was a long-term backup that they looked for. And New England did this a lot with Tom Brady. I mean, they took guys like Kevin O'Connell, Matt Castle, Matt Gutierrez. I mean, they took a bunch of guys when Brady was still, their quarterback. Jimmy G and Jacoby Brissett are 2 other examples. So New England does, go through and takes a lot of day 3 quarterbacks. I didn't think it was that big of a surprise, especially when Mike or Ian Rappaport came on and was like, Patriots are thinking about taking a quarterback here. And then the next pick, they took a quarterback. So, I mean, it wasn't a big surprise to me at all. And then Sam Roberts, I know absolutely nothing about. This is the classic Bill Belichick pick where it's like, who the hell is this dude? And he takes him. So, was super productive at Northwest Missouri State. I mean, had like double-digit TFLs the last couple of years and, 5+ sacks, which is really good production for an interior defensive lineman. And I know he went to Northwest Missouri State, but hey, maybe there's something there. I don't know because I don't watch any of Northwest Missouri State. So, but that was a classic Bill Belichick pick. And then Jason Hines, Andrew Stuber, guys that, fill out their depth. Hines is kind of that burly Mullen dude at guard, fits their scheme perfectly, similar to that Michael Onwenu pick a couple years ago. And then Stuber, who they've had, success with, Michigan linemen, Onwenu's a good example, just adds more bodies at tackle. And I do like his technique and I do like his frame. So maybe they got something there, late in the 7th round. But overall, I think it's a B-. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I truly think the only bad pick they had was Jack Jones. I think Kevin Harris was a little bit overboard on the running backs. And then, the backup quarterback picks kind of, to me, it's like it makes sense because they don't have a long-term backup for Mac Jones. But honestly, I don't think this draft is as bad as people say it is. You can come fight me in the comments section. You can disagree with me otherwise, but I really don't think it was that bad of a draft for New England. Moving on to the New York Jets, who really had a really good draft. It starts with Sauce Gardner, who I have as an A-. I just think, corner top 5 is really hard to kind of judge because I think that, you've seen examples of like Jalen Ramsey, and it's like, whoa, that dude is a really big, impact. He's the best corner in the league. And then you see guys like Okudah, which part of it has been injuries, I understand, but where it's like, is this really going to work out? So, I think the only thing for me with Sauce Gardner is the scheme fits weird. They run a lot of off zone coverage, and Sauce is more of the guy that's going to get in your face, press technique. And I don't think it was a matter of zone or man for me. It was he needed to be in a press scheme because I think, yes, he's better in man coverage, but I think his zone was adequate enough where in a few years he was going to be elite no matter what. So unless if Saleh changes up what he wants to do, this is a really weird fit for me. Because I think that a McDuffie was a better scheme fit, but Sauce is definitely the better player, so we'll just kind of see how he adapts there. I mean, he's got great ball skills, was locked down at Cincinnati, was the definition of lockdown, so we'll kind of see how that all works out for him. And they take Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State, great pick. I think he's going to slot in as the Z, because I think Corey Davis is your prototypical X, but I think Wilson's probably going to be one of the most, if not the most productive rookie at the receiver position. Wilson's going to be fun to watch. I think that, he's a really good route runner. Not quite as good as Olave, but really good. I think he's got deceptive speed, so he's going to take the top off the defense. And I think just getting the ball in his hands, I think he can make plays. I did have him as my wide receiver 3, but he was like one spot below London. So I really like this pick for them. I think it gives them somebody that Wilson can go to in a pinch when he needs, a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 10. Wilson's going to be the guy he's going to go to. And then we have Jermaine Johnson, the edge from Florida State. I love this pick, them trading back up and getting him. I think he really reminds me a lot of Arik Armstead, where, he's going to be kind of an edge on early downs, and then, maybe you can flex him inside on pass rush downs. I think that he's kind of the movable chess piece where Saleh's going to do a lot of different things with him. He's going to be an immediate impact day one as a run defender. I think he's going to need a lot of work as a pass rusher, because I think he doesn't translate speed to power that well. He doesn't have a bunch of counter moves, so he's going to learn there from the guys they have like John Franklin Myers and Quinnen Williams and some of those other guys on the edge. But I do really like this pick. It gives them a guy to build long-term through. And then my guy Breece Hall going here. I was really sad to see him go here just because, loved him at Iowa State, being an Iowa State fan, and him having to go to the Jets. It's like, oh, it's killer because, I do really love Breece, but the fact he landed on the Jets, man. It could have been any other team but the Jets. But, I think Breece Hall is kind of what they missed last year at the running back position. They truly needed a bell cow that can come in there and just carry the load. And Michael Carter is a good player, but Breece Hall is just, an infinitely better version than Michael Carter. I mean, he's going to come in there and just absolutely bulldoze his way through people and make people miss. I mean, Breece is perfect in this wide zone offense scheme, and I think the one thing that you had with him was, did he have, that home run speed that Kenneth Walker had? And he certainly did. He ran under 4.4, so perfect scheme fit here for the Jets. And Breece, to me, is a very patient runner. Just his vision is absolutely incredible. And then once he breaks free, good luck catching him. It just reminds me of Le'Veon Bell. I don't think Bell was the fastest guy, but he was certainly the most patient runner. And for a time, he was probably the best running back in the league, no question. So I think Breece Hall can certainly get there. I have that pick as a grade A, another phenomenal pick. And we have Jeremy Ruckert. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this pick. I have it as a C+. And it's not that I don't like Ruckert as a player. It just really doesn't make sense for me why you took Ruckert when you signed Uzama and Conklin when he's pretty much the same player as those guys. I think Ruckert to Uzama is a really good comparison. I think he's a much better blocker than either of those guys right away. But is he much better receiver than Uzama? No, and I don't think he'll ever get much better than Uzama as a receiver. So, I know his target level was low because of the fact that they had Smith and Jigba, Wilson, and Olave. But I just don't see Ruckert as a high upside tight end. I think he's solid and I think he fits his scheme well, but I just don't think he's like the athletic vertical threat that George Kittle is, or, our Robert Tonyan even is. I think he's a good blocker, and I think that this scheme needs that, but is he the receiving threat of an Isaiah Likely or a Charlie Kohler or anybody else that was on the board? No. So that's my only gripe with that pick. And then Max Mitchell, picking him up at the beginning of the 4th round, was a great pick. I thought he was a late 2 guy. I think he could potentially start right away at that right tackle spot. With Fant and Udoga there, I think he's a much better player than those guys. I think he's got a good technique. I think he just needs to improve on his anchor and hand placement, and he's a solid run blocker. So we don't know the situation that's, there with Mekhi Becton. So I think if Mekhi Becton even comes back to the Jets, He slides in a right tackle where he plays left with Fant or Edoga at right, but they now have a really, really good tackle room. And then Michael Clemens is a decent edge, bringing him in there for, some bodies. I thought it was a fine pick. So the Jets' final grade is an A. I thought they had a really, really good draft. Outside of the Ruckert and Clemens picks, I think they had a phenomenal draft. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I know I haven't been on since I think last Thursday, but I was just getting settled at home. I had to drive Friday and Saturday, and then I spent Sunday, Mother's Day, and then Monday I was kind of just, getting ready, getting prepared for this video. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoy this video. Stay tuned tomorrow for the AFC North draft grades. AFC South coming on Thursday, and AFC West coming on Friday. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great day, and peace.